I've lived 1,000 lives. I've piloted 1,000 souls. I've killed and fought at night just for another role.
This is the Happy Jacks RPG podcast, a roundtable discussion that's a mix of friendship, humor, unbridled enthusiasm, and tabletop RPG topics sent in from around the world.
Just for another role.
Hello, and welcome to Season 35, Episode 11 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. My name is Kimmy, and I'm the only one here today. So, this is going to be a fun episode where I get to talk to you. I'm also going to be reading emails and things like that, but it's just me, my dulcet tones, slightly with a little bit of a cold, so lots of vocal fry, but I hope you love me nonetheless. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about tariffs and TTRPGs. As a small business owner, as someone very plugged into the industry, I'm going to tell you some of the stuff that's happening, some of the stuff you can do about it, and how you can help out your favorite creators. It's not all doom and gloom, I promise. There's a lot of doom and gloom, but it's also things you can do. Emails. Turlin asks about the X card with multiple problem players, and from the archive 2022, Weasel Creature laments the fate of the elves in Stu's Eldamy game. If you don't know what that is, I'll give you context, I promise. If you have a story or topic you'd like us to talk about, or me to talk about on the show, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. Or you can post stuff in the mailbag channel of the Discord, and that's happyjacks.org/discord. I promise this is not a solo show from now on. It's just a kerfuffle of random events, and I think a holiday happening tomorrow, just like, it's me. It's just me. So anyway, announcements. Game Days is going to be May 24th. It's fun, safe, and free. Please come play. The last one had 9 different games that all ran like in one day. It's super amazing. You can sign up to run or play at happyjacks.org/discord. When you join the Discord, it can be a little overwhelming. I totally understand. Feel free to ask. People are really very helpful. So there's also things you can do after you ask, of like narrowing down the number of channels you see, things like that. Please don't just join, be overwhelmed, and leave. Ask for help. We have some very amazing tour guides, and Verk does just an amazing job of ushering people to the Game Days day, and all the mods there are fantastic. So, again, that's happyjacks.org/discord, and Game Days is going to be May 24th. Indie Designer of the Month. Our Indie Designer of the Month for April is Jess. They from Wannabe Games. I have to tell you a very cool story. I was chatting with Jess the other day, and she mentioned, she's like, hey, thank you so much for featuring me, because a bunch of people have followed my itch page since you started featuring me, and they've also bought things from her. So she was very excited. She was very thankful. She sends her thanks to everyone in the community. It might just be a coincidence, but I'm going to take credit for us and the Happy Jacks community. Thank you for actually supporting our Game Days designers. That's very cool, and it makes them very happy. All right, today you can find her work, at wannabegames.itch.io, or by searching for Wannabe Games on DriveThruRPG. You can also find her at JAWSKA, Jawska. I forgot to ask her what it means. I'm sorry, everyone. At Blue Sky. Today's product we're talking about is Steamboat Willie, a solo cartooning RPG. May or maybe not designed specifically as a middle finger to capitalism when Steamboat Willie became public domain. The answer for that is yes. Steamboat Willie, a solo cartooning RPG, is a single player game where you are asked to draw cartoons. Sounds pretty simple, right? Sure starts that way. This game is about the relationship between making art and surviving under capitalism. Why do I pick this game today? This game slowly adds marketing demands, weird CEOs, and new characters for the toy factories to make merch from. Try and keep your head up and keep making art during a constantly changing landscape. Oh boy. It is available for $15 at wannabegames.itch.io. And yes, support our amazing Indie Designer of the Month, Jess. All right. Topic number 1. I am going to be talking about tariffs and TTRPG specifically. I'm not going to get into the larger politics of production chains and worldwide economics because I am not qualified for that in any way. But I can talk to you about the tariffs and how they're affecting specifically TTRPGs and board games, but mostly TTRPGs. So the good news for TTRPG fans. Most TTRPGs are books, and books are something that are easier to have printed in other places around the world. Now, most of us get them printed in China because literally it's the cheapest and also the highest quality. They have a huge number of factories there that, despite how their reputation from like the 90s, have very good working conditions, meet international standards and things like that. And they just have a whole supply chain set up right there where they get the paper, everything done. And you can have these beautiful books. For example, Panda Manufacturing made my Decima decks. They have very high work standards, very high printing standards. The Decima decks were all from specifically printed on paper and cards that were from sources that were not harmful to the planet, and renewable forests, things like that. So it's a very hard thing to replicate, not because there are no other places that print, but no place prints at that scale. No place prints that many jobs for that many companies with that large quantities in that reasonable amount of time. And even that is months, by the way. So you make your order and it's literally 6 to 8 months later that you actually get the product. And that's with that massive printing supply chain that they have available. There are places you can get things printed in the US. There are places you can get things printed in Canada and Europe and all these other places. They just don't have the mass capabilities. That is where a lot of us are pivoting to do. So that's the good news. The fact that we have books, we have it a lot better than a lot of my friends who are in the board game industry who have to get like meeples and things like that printed. That's an entirely different issue. The materials costs are going to be higher, and printing other places, the cost will be higher, but not nearly the astronomical cost that your favorite board game designers who need specific dice and specific meeples and things like that will have printed. Most TTRPGs are designed to use with dice that most people already have, and there are companies that already source from other places. Chessex has already announced that they will not be raising their prices because they have their own production and supply chain all set up. So they actually aren't going to be as affected as much as other companies will. So, and there are also all these laws, which we're all still trying to figure out if they apply or not, that protect the making of books specifically. Long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, a whole bunch of people in the world and a whole bunch of countries got together and agreed that books were for the greater good. And a lot of times they are excused from certain tariffs, certain extra costs, duties, things like that. I said duties. As that you're making them and shipping them around the world. Whether that's still going to apply, go figure. We don't know. But because most TTRPGs are in book form, there is a chance that we may not have as high a tariff costs as other products. But we're still seeing. So again, everything's very much up in the air. A couple of things. I am in a lucky place, and I promise this is not just going to be a Starscape update. I'm in a lucky place because I had some things locked in ahead of time, and I'm still early enough in my Starscape project that I'm able to pivot. We'll lose money, but if I have to pivot, I can. There are very good friends of mine, very good friends of this podcast, amazing people who are not that lucky, who have their products already on ships or already printed in the factories or have already paid for them or things like that. And they're going to have a lot harder time pivoting and figuring out what to do. Nobody has any advice for them at this point. We don't know what to do. Wait and see is kind of our best thing there. And Gloomhaven, I think, is the most famous example of this. And if you're still on Facebook, they're having ads on there specifically saying Gloomhaven is stuck. We can't get our books. Contact your rep. So it's a very interesting process that we're all going through. Frustrating, scary, kind of dream crushing for many, which is hard. And it's really hitting those mid-level companies, I think, the hardest. So I am a very tiny company. So I have not a lot of stuff in production at a time. I have enough stock to get me through for a while and see what happens. The big companies have more capital to work with. We will definitely continue to see layoffs and things like that, but they also will get precedence in the printing in other places. So as the lines stack up to have your materials made in other places around the world at these factories that don't have the capacity that China does, the big companies are going to push to the front of the line, because those companies, like, those are really big things. If someone's having 100,000 copies of a game printed, they're absolutely going to be prioritized over someone who has 2,000 copies of a game printed. So yeah, that's frustrating, but it also means that a lot of those big companies may not end up hurting as much as those mid-tier companies that are not as flexible as tiny creators like me, and don't have the clout of bigger companies. So if you have some mid-level companies that you really care about, that are based in the US, show them some love for sure. Because it's going to get scary. It's going to get hard out there. And a lot of them have, ordered things that they were expecting to sell. And it's just, everything's just so messed up with it right now. And it's also affecting retailers. So I want to talk about that specifically. And publishers and how it's affecting publishers. You're going to start probably seeing a lot less dice and things like that. One of the weirdest things, and I can't say that this is actual fact, but it is lore regarding convention fans and people. Those little pins that you get, like with the little back on them, are almost 100% made in China. There are actually no factories that make them in the United States, or very few, because the machines that make those can very easily be modified to make, I believe it's like coins or something that the US doesn't want us to make here. So it's actually very, very rare. You have to have like a bunch of special permits and things like that in the US. So like those cute little pins that you usually get with a bunch of Kickstarters or when you're walking around conventions and stuff, those are probably going to be a thing of the past very soon. Same thing with dice. Like, dice is just something that is made at such scale that unless you're someone like Chessex, who's literally making millions and millions and billions of dice, it's just not going to be worth it. So I would suggest either ordering from Chessex if you want, or ordering from people who are making artisan dice, like in the US, by hand. Because there will be some manufacturing increase probably in the United States and some places that have a lower tariff number. But one of the cool things you can really do is order from artisans who are making them by hand. We've all seen them, like the most beautiful dice you've ever seen. They're pretty expensive, but I have already shelled out many, many, many too many of dollars to beautiful dice makers. I talked on a previous podcast about my sexy vampire dice that I bought at Strategicon a few years ago, and how like they've got like lace in them and like sexy like red and like clouding that looks kind of like blood. They're beautiful. So support creators like that to get your dice needs met in the meantime. Retailers are going to be hurting too. They are very scared right now too. Like, publishers have to worry about a certain number of products. Retailers have to worry about huge numbers of products. So the retailers I know are looking at doubling and tripling costs to get games. So a game that was previously going to cost them, usually it costs a retailer around 40 to 50% to buy in bulk retail. And so for example, if a TTRPG book costs $40 to a customer, generally the retailer is paying under 20, so like between 18 and 20-ish. But that's because they're buying a bunch of copies. It's not like one. They can't buy one at that cost usually. So that immediately, if that book that was $40 is now $80, that means they're now paying $40. So it just doubles for them as well, even though they aren't paying the full customer price. And that's just a lot of money out of pocket. And they're also looking at shortages, which is another problem. Even if they are a more established store that's able to fork out that cash and has the war chest, you can't buy games that don't exist. You can't buy games that can't be printed. And again, while TTRPGs have a little more flexibility because they're usually in book or like zine form, like those box sets, those are going to be a problem. Lots of like the actual like board games, things like that are really good sellers, are going to be something that's going to start being limited, and it's going to be hard to get copies of things. So be aware of that. Maybe start helping with your friendly local gaming store about like having like a used game sale. So if you're done with a game, you can give it to them and they can sell it at a little bit lower cost. But having like secondhand games and stuff sell can keep money flowing into these establishments when the supply chain fails them. It also is a lot of them who have the means are actually buying huge amounts of product now, and are renting extra space to store that product. So that's one of the things that some of the really bigger retailers and friendly local gaming stores, if they have the space, are doing, which is wild, but it's to safeguard against running out of product, because if they run out of product, they are out. Like there's you cannot sell things if you do not have things to sell, and it's just really, really problematic for them. Some places are shutting down. Flat River Group announced that it's shutting down one of its imprints. Flat River Group is one of the biggest distributors of games. They are completely not interested in little games like me, but like if they have games in like Target, like major millions of copies, things like that. So the fact that they are shutting down some of their like publishing arms is not great. Scary. The biggest thing that's going to be a problem is the uncertainty. And I know you've probably heard this talked about with lots of different goods, but specifically for TTRPGs, like I could pivot and, move my publishing or my printing to another place. I can print in the US too, but it's really, really expensive. And already the lines are almost over a year long. So even if I was like done with my game today, send it to a publisher in the US, the chances of it actually getting printed in the next like 8 months is probably very low. And the cost will be much, much higher than what I originally planned for and budgeted for. That's hard and that's stressful. But the other uncertainty piece is if I was going to decide to make it somewhere else, for example, like I have priced things from like the UK. I've priced things in other countries as I start to try and have, things spread out where my games are available in the world. Sometimes it's cheaper to print something locally and then have it available there rather than have it printed and shipped into different countries. So I've priced out printing in other places. And again, it's like, okay, so if I get my project rolling and I'm printing in Spain or I'm printing in the UK or I'm printing in Canada or whatever, like there's no certainty that isn't going to be the person who, or the country that gets tariffed next. And that's the thing that people are really scared of. Like, if I wait 6 months, are the tariffs on China going to be taken off because they've agreed to a deal or they gave up or whatever it is? Or, do I move all my business and start printing out of the UK or Italy or wherever else I've had priced out? And then, okay, just as my game's ready to go, new tariffs on that country too. So it's just like, okay, now I'm doubled. And then I'm in the same boat that a lot of my friends are in right now who are delivering. So the uncertainty is the hardest piece. We are able to pivot, but you can't pivot if you can't plan. And that's hitting every industry. but specifically the TTRPG industry for me and for this podcast, for the purposes of this podcast. So what can you do? First off, you can buy games, and when games are no longer available, you can buy PDFs. I know a lot of people have moved to only buying PDFs, and if you're that person, that is amazing. That's great. A lot of people, I am one of them, I still love like a printed book. And so a game I really, really want to play, I usually will get a printed book of. We need to become more comfortable with getting PDFs, because that is going to be the lifeblood that keeps many small and mid-sized TTRPG companies going, is that people will still hopefully buy their PDFs, with or without books coming. There are some people I know who are talking about moving to an all PDF model, and many small creators already do that. So start considering that, and and tell your creators that you care about that you are willing to do that. Tell them you support them. Right now, they need cheerleaders more than anything. And we're all in like these groups together, and we're all commiserating, and we're all trying to cheer each other up. I am in a very lucky situation where I have direct communication with a large number of people who support my games, through the podcast, through the Discord, through a bunch of other places. Most people who make games don't have that direct line to their friends/customers. So they don't really know what people are thinking. They don't really know if people are willing to follow them to a PDF model, or if people are willing to wait an extra year for their games, or things like that. Please tell the creators you care about to do that. Like that you will wait for them, that you care about them, because that will keep them going. A lot of people are just kind of giving up because they don't know, and that's hard. And just hearing, yeah, hey, don't stress about it. We're cool waiting 8 more months or a year. I promise this is not about me. Like, or I'm willing, hey, I can't wait. Why don't you just put it out in PDF and we'll still buy it? Like, and paying a good amount for a PDF too, by the way. Like, PDFs are expensive. They take so much time and so much money. And I know a lot of people are used to getting a PDF free when they buy a book. But a PDF takes just as much writing. It takes just as much art. It takes just as much editing. It takes, the only cost that's saved with a PDF is the actual printing. And like, you still have to hire an editor. You still have to hire an artist. You still have to hire, a layout person. You still have to hire, all these, readers. You have to spend years, in my case at least, years playtesting, getting feedback, running games. So, expecting a full PDF of a game for $5 is not a realistic expectation, unless it's like a small, like zine or something. Those are a little different. But a full sized TTRPG, that's a ton of work. It's years of a person's life, and a lot of experts that have been paid to put it on there. And it's a lot of labor and love and tears and sweat and work and revisions. So to be willing to pay what a PDF is worth. It's not just, PDFs are no longer just a version of the printed book that are just in PDF form. People are actually formatting PDFs differently now. So they are a completely separate entity from the printed materials. So it's a separate product completely. So be willing to pay that price for a separate product that is made to be read on, digitally or printed out, because that is definitely not the same as the layout for something that's going to be printed in a book, by the way. So it's not 2 birds, 1 stone, like a lot of people assume. It's a completely separate process, and you pay a layout artist twice for the same project. You pay for the book, and you pay for the PDF, which is a lot of work and a lot of money involved. So back. Another thing you can do, back crowdfunding projects that don't have all the bells and whistles. Those bells and whistles are going to be really hard and really expensive. They have been for a while, and more than one crowdfunding campaign has been sunk because they were too generous, or they had, too high goals about having dice and pins and a lanyard and especially, 3 different covers and things like that. Those are going to be too expensive now. Those are going to be things that are not going to be showing up. One, if you've already backed a Kickstarter project, not mine, because I'll figure it out, but that has those things and they are not able to deliver on them, please do not, shred the person crowdfunding. At this point in time, like that, you getting the product at all is very excellent work on their part. Getting the extra set of dice, getting the extra pins, all those things it might just not happen. And please be understanding about that. It's not personal. It's not bad planning. It's not a failure on their part. It is world circumstance that nobody could have predicted or planned for. Even me. I am a wild planner for my projects. Like, just wild planning. Like, I managed to get Decima made during a pandemic, having never made anything before with worldwide shipping, and still not go into debt with it. I still was in the black, not by a lot, but a little bit, because I love spreadsheets that much. But people aren't going to be able to, most people aren't going to be able to do that, nor had they had the training to do that. So just be a little forgiving with people. And back new projects, even if they don't have all the bells and whistles you usually would expect or want, because that's just not going to be the norm for a while. So people might have very few extras. You should still support, and yeah, please support. And lastly, especially if you're in the U.S., please call your representatives. Please talk to them. If you are not in the U.S., please still reach out to your politicians, talk to them, ask them to put pressure, on the U.S. and on our leaders, and, find ways to support small businesses and things like that so that you can get the things you love, because it's going to trickle out. Like, the majority of the TTRPGs made in the world are made in the U.S. That has been changing. And so that is excellent news that there are many more publishers who are not US based now. For those of you who are not in the US, reach out, find them. And if you need help finding them, reach out to the Discord, things like that. There's a lot of amazing people that you could find that way who can suggest creators from all over the world. But especially if you are in the US, reach out to your representatives, even if you think they already agree with you. And point out to them specifically that how many things the game industry touches. It might sound silly, but when you start talking about the number of small businesses, both retail and publication and creating, and all the jobs that entails, that are going to start suffering and shutting down, and then that there's a whole industry interconnected with each other. I think that, hopefully they can start listening and putting pressure on, and maybe carving out exemptions and things like that. Who knows? But that's kind of the only lever we have to pull right now. And hopefully that keeping that pressure on them and letting them know that we really do care about this tariff issue. And there's a lot of other issues, but that this one is one that will trickle through eventually the entire economy. And using games as a very small but very clear example that touches a lot of people's lives. Just about everyone you've known plays a board game or plays cards or something like that. There may not all be TTRPG players. We're kind of still a niche thing, but they still play Monopoly. They want to buy toys for their kids. They want to, sit down with their family. And, my daughter plays Candyland all the time. And I know it's not really a board game, but it does teach good board game skills. And she's also ridiculously good at it, and I can't ever beat her. But maybe we should have some games that don't get made again. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, so those are things you can do. Again, the TTRPG industry is overall in a little bit better place than a lot of board game manufacturers and things like that because of the simplicity of our product. Having a book printed is something that is very flexible and can be done many places. The waits will be longer. You'll probably stop having quite so many fancy box sets that seem to be the trend and where I was thinking of going. But yeah, so anyway, that's my rant. I don't know if anybody has questions, feel free to send them in. I don't really know where things are going with this. I'm tracking it very closely. Some of the things I'm considering for my products specifically, having them printed in other places. US printing is almost completely out right now because there's such such long wait lines. For everything other than a small zine. Like a small zine could get printed like locally here in LA for me and things like that. So I'm considering publishing Virgins and Vixens and like at a bigger scale locally to help fund and pay for the printing and some of the tariffs on Starscape. Some other things I'm thinking about is if I ship from China, which is one of the things I did for Decima previously, just because of the costs to ship other places in the world at the time. It was cheapest to send it to the United States, but shipping from the United States to other places was pretty expensive at the time. So if I send individual books that are the materials price only listed, wink wink, nudge nudge, so it says they're like worth $5 or $7, then each item would then be tariffed individually. So instead of charging you know I haven't charged shipping yet, so then like each person would pay like the 145% on there, so each person would have to pay like a little over like $14 or $15 when they got their product. Still really difficult. There's a lot of people who couldn't afford that. There's a lot of people who backed the Kickstarter at a much higher level and shouldn't have to pay that. But those are some of the things that we're looking into. Also just looking into kind of waiting. Like that was my plan when I posted last month before the tariffs went from 25% to 145%. So yeah, since the lines are so long for printing in other places right now, we might just chill and keep writing on stuff and just kind of wait. keep it up. I was so excited to get my project funded and printed and out there on time this time, because there wasn't going to be anything bad that happened. Last time it was a worldwide pandemic. This time, crap. So I also apologize. It may be my successfully funded crowdfunding campaign doomed us all. And if that's the case, I really am sorry. Like, really sorry. A lot. Very sorry. So, all right. Yeah. So I think that's it for that right now. I don't know if people are interested in like an update about this stuff. I'm sort of torn. It's so sad. I don't really want to talk about it every week, but I also think it's something that's important and very relevant to the purpose of this podcast. So I might do kind of random updates. I also feel that a lot of people who care about this or like have the bandwidth to follow this are already doing so. So maybe it's not necessary. If you have a preference, please let me know. You can DM me in Discord or post in the Discord, or you can shoot an email. It doesn't have to be for the podcast. You can just be like, hey, happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. I don't ever want to hear about this again. Or, hey, I'm having trouble like parsing out information about my hobby that I love from the doom and gloom of the other news about the tariffs. I would like more updates that are TTRPG specific and stuff like that. So, yeah. Please continue to support our Indie Designers of the Month. It is more... We started doing that because I love the TTRPG indie community. I started making great friends, and I wanted to help point this podcast in a way that wasn't just us talking, that was like doing good in the industry, and that good is needed now more than ever. So if you can do that, I know money's tight for everyone, but even just like following pages and sending them likes, retweeting, or not retweeting, God, don't be on Twitter, but like re-skeeting, I don't know what they call it on Blue Sky, re-blue skying, re-flying, re-clouding. I know they have a name too, and it's ridiculous. So resharing, how about resharing on Blue Sky or whatever social media platform you're using? Skeets is what they use. It's so sweet, so weird. I don't know. Why do you have to have it? Don't have it. You don't need your own word for it. Just sharing, resharing. Really helping with all that stuff. Just really helps, just spreading the word and like I said earlier, talking to them, telling them that it's okay, because right now a lot of us are so frustrated and angry at ourselves, feeling like we failed, things like that. Having people who care about your work, fans of your art, fans of your writing, be like, hey, we get the world's in chaos. we support your stuff. We understand if there are delays or that if this takes longer or if you can't do something for a while. That means the world, and it really, really takes the pressure off in a world that already has too much pressure on us. So, yeah, all right. End of rant. So I guess I'll go on to mailbag number 1. Hey there, happy jackers and jackettes and overcoats and undercoats. And where was I going? Oh yes, I have a story and a question. I've been playing with my group for over a decade, all well and good, but recently I have noticed their behavior is getting more and more on my nerves. As a player, I tend to lean away from being the devoted to combat characters, preferring to find the skill-based or out-of-the-box solutions to problems. In the past year, there have been several occasions on several different games and with different PCs where my PC would be working on a side issue and all of a sudden another player's PC would show up to, quote, help. Let me be clear that no such help is asked for, either in character or out of character, or needed. After I disable the security system, the helper whisks the prisoner to safety. When I solve the puzzle, the helper snags the MacGuffin and zooms off. These, quote, helpers are not always the same players. So, this is annoying. However, it is not triggering, nor do I feel uncomfortable per se. I feel I have the usual person's aversion to confronting the way someone else is playing their character. I know the standard solution from the Happy Jacks crew is to, quote, have an adult conversation, but since the behavior comes from more than one player, it gets more icky, I feel. So, my question, would this be an appropriate time to use the X card? Helper. There's like a scene now. Helper. I do the annoying thing. Me. I think I'm going to X card that thing. On the surface, this seems like a simple way to nip things in the bud. I do the thing, no you don't. But I also feel that using a safety tool in that way, in a way that's not intended, might impact its more important purpose. Thoughts? Torlin. P.S. Eat. I'm not eating, especially when I'm the only person talking. That'd be terrible. All right. So one of the things about the X card is people feel that it is only for the most important moments. And it is not. It is for any time you're feeling uncomfortable. And that can be little things. My favorite example is I was in a game once, and I forget who it was, the GM. They named like this very handsome kind of like love interest type NPC for the party with my dad's name. It's just like, And I've met other people with my dad's name, so it wasn't like an unheard of thing. But the thing is, when you meet a real person in real life with that name, like your brain kind of adapts. Like, this is the person who is this name now. But when like one of your friends is like romancing a character with your dad's name, it feels a little different because your brain keeps jumping back to, hey, that's my dad's name. That's weird. And it's like, okay. So I X-carded that. I've done the same with like ex-boyfriend's name, my kid's name, things like that. It's just, I don't know, it's just a thing. Like it makes me uncomfortable. It's not a big deal. If I had not hit the X card, could I have continued playing? Absolutely. Would I be like stressed out? No. Would any psychological damage be done to me? No. Would I just be a little like perturbed every time? Is like, I kiss Kimmy's dad's name, insert here. Like a little just like, oh, like every time? Yes. So the X card is to keep everyone at the table feeling comfortable. That said, so absolutely, this is a situation where you can use it. I do think now, most of the time when you use an X card, people shouldn't be asking for more explanation. This might be a situation where you'd want to offer it up, and that would lead to an adult conversation. But I do think you need to kind of reflect on this for just a minute. Because TTRPGs are a group activity. It sounds, and I love you, I really do. I appreciate all your emails. It sounds that you want these kind of solo moments, and you keep feeling like the spotlight gets stolen from you. But when you're doing these activities, like you've had the spotlight for a while. So it's going to need more than just one single X-carded moment. for people to recognize this pattern and realize that you are wanting these moments to be solo moments. Because especially for things like D&D, the parties are literally made to have different skills that they're good at so that they can work cooperatively to get things done. Like the thief unlocks the lock. The strong person goes in and lifts up the prisoners, who are too weak to walk, and they go out, and then like the caster heals, so it's literally made where everyone does a different job so you can work together to do things successfully. If you are going into this expecting to be the person who unlocks the door, frees the prisoners, gets the prisoners out of there, and shuts the door on your way out or whatever it is you're doing, that's not necessarily playing in the norm of D&D or TTRPGs. So I don't know if there's a mix of your friends being a little bit over anxious or overexcited to do something, to participate, and you having expectations that don't necessarily match the collaborative vision of the group. And an X card is not going to fix that piece. X cards are like in the moment, like breaks. They are not like the actual thing that's going to heal the problem. They are a communication tool, not a band-aid. So yes, hit the X card, but you need to talk to your party about this, because even I sitting down, like reading this, it doesn't sound like they are being jerks to me. It doesn't sound like they're being, it may be annoying to you, absolutely, but there's nothing I'm seeing that comes off as people stepping out of what the norm of a TTRPG experience is. Maybe I'm wrong. You can write back and clarify and be like, oh, no. They are the most annoying at saving these hostages. They are singing the song that never ends as they go through, and they just don't stop, and it brings more guards. And in this case, yes, they are being the assholes. But if they're just like joining in on this rescue, that's kind of the expectation of these games. That's why we call them, collaborative storytelling. If you're not collaborating, it's just you storytelling. So kind of reflect on that piece first. Are you expecting too much solo time? If the answer is no, then I would bring it up first before I started using the X card. I'd say, hey, I have this moment. Or or you can use it in the moment if you use the X card and just explain. Say, hey, I'm Xing that. I was really looking forward to doing that part myself. If you don't mind, like drop out of character and explain. I usually do not advocate for explaining the X card use. But sometimes things are so out of nowhere or so random. Like I did explain with my dad's name, for example, because I just like, oh, because I also kind of thought it was funny to explain, and people at the table thought it was funny. But so you can X things without explanation, and that's fine. But if you're Xing another character's behavior or another player's behavior, you kind of have to tell them what they're doing so they don't repeat themselves. That's the problem there. If it's about a personal trauma, you're Xing, like violence or harm to children or anything that would hurt a pony or horse. Like all those things, like you don't necessarily need to explain. When you're Xing a specific behavior that is not out of the norm and is not, is part of normal TTRPG, behavior, it's going to be hard to, people aren't going to know what to do with, oh, I X card him saving the hostages. Oh, you want the hostages to stay? Like you want them to stay hostages and be in prison, even though you just opened the door? Like, so there's going to need some explanation there. A lot of times people can infer, oh, I X, the dog getting kicked. Okay. Like people, oh, okay. Like you don't need to explain that. With this particular piece, because they are doing things that they see as helpful to you, just X carding it is not going to be enough. People aren't going to know exactly what it is. So this is a little bit different use of the X card. So it's just going to need a little more help, because especially if you've been playing with these people for over a decade, like they can be annoying, but they're your friends. Like friends are annoying. So, hopefully you have a relationship where you're okay kind of explaining that. And there's kind of like a gradient of ways to use the X card. There's no like one right way. Like I said, it's a tool and people use it a different way. Like hammers are made to put nails in and take nails out. It does multiple things. X card is kind of the same. It can be used for a lot of different purposes. But it is always about your safety. I think it's really important that we start normalizing the X card and other tools are not just for dire situations. It's for any kind of like enjoyment of the game. So yeah. And sometimes that means you start having an adult conversation. Sometimes that means you don't give an explanation. Sometimes that means you realize that a game isn't for you and that it's just the first step in leaving the game. But whatever it is, do not feel that you have to be about to be bursting in tears or needing to call, your psychiatrist or therapist, which, by the way, everyone should have those if they can because they're very helpful. I'm not knocking the use of those. I'm advocating for that. To use the X card. It's there to be used. So use it. But yeah, this might be a little bit of a special situation where you need a little bit more help with that. All right. Mailbag 3 from the archive, 2022. It's on the other page. By the way, just sidebar, I realized tonight that the printer that I've been using for years, my jet ink printer, does double-sided printing. I just didn't know it did because it was the same one I thought as the one I had at school, which is why I bought it. And the one at school doesn't do double-sided printing for sure. And so I accidentally printed out double side tonight, and I'm just so mad at past Kimmy who did not read the directions for the printer and just assumed she knew everything because that's what she does all the time with everything that has directions. Because so many of my convention playtests would have been so much nicer and so much more luxe if everything hadn't been single-sided printed. I'm just going to say I'm really sorry to anybody who playtested any of my games with like 4 different pages all laid out because I didn't know my home printer did double-sided printing. Okay, done with that. Thank you. That was my little frustration there. All right, mailbag at number 2. Sláinte, Kimmy, and the assorted flavors of Jackers. It's just tonight. Just me tonight. Only one flavor. It's the Kimmy flavor. Wow, that could go so wrongly. Okay, man, I really wish I'd caught up more before Stu stepped down, but hopefully he's there today. He's not here today. Nobody's here today. It's just me today. Stu, your civilization of extinct elves, it got me thinking. First, man, that's fucked up. Second, their society must have been really cruel or something to those who didn't know their plight. Feel free to act out any interactions with fun accents you think those involved would have. Okay, so a little bit of backstory. Stu had this ongoing set of D&D campaigns set in the world of Eldamy. He also ended up writing some books over pandemic and stuff, so if you're curious, you can go read his books that he self-published on Amazon. But one of the things was this elven race that was dying out because Stu doesn't math well. But basically the idea was like each set of elves can only have one child. That's why I got really into helping with the orcs in that setting because I was not super pleased with the elves for the first time ever in my life. But anyway, it was a very cool setting in a lot of very cool ways. I really loved some of the orc culture that we set up. There was I made this whole matriarchal fighting force in them, which shocker to anybody, right? So prized. Kimmy really likes badass women fighters. Shocking. But yeah, so there's a lot of very cool things about the campaign. This is one of the things I kind of was always like, what? But fine. Continuing, you needed that context to understand. This is me explaining, giving context for people who may not have listened to those very, very early on APs. So, for one thing, the elves must have hated their creator, assuming they had one, because without some sort of creation, there's no way you would have grown as a society. Unless there was a later event that caused their 2 parents enter, one child leaves curse. Creator, worship me, Oh, this is another scene. I have a lot of scenes in these emails tonight. Creator, worship me, elves, for I am your creator. I have given you life. Elves, thanks, creator. This life thing seems fun. I don't know why the elves sound like that, but whatever. Creator, it will be. Enjoy it. Oh, and each mating pair may only have 1 offspring. Elves, well, you're obviously not good at math, you fucking prick. A lot of cursing tonight, too. Sorry. It's fine. Blame Weasel Creature. It's very funny, though. I imagine once the gravity of their situation really set in, society rules got stringent and strict. Any elf who isn't a parent would probably be confined to the safety of a city. Once a pair has a child, well, unless they have some skill to benefit society that a non-parent can't fill, their only benefit would be to protect the cities of the soon-to-be parents from any outside force, enemy, monster that could kill one of them before having a child. So now you have co-ed groups, bands, armies of elves whose sole duty is to make sure that their cities have no outside dangers. And when an elf gets old, well, here's where what would seem like cruelty to outsiders and it would set in. Or what would seem like cruelty to outsiders would set in. Elf, oh, more acting, sorry. Elf. Sorry, old man, but it's time for you to move on. You're too old to fight, and you aren't a healer. And sure, you used to be a fine tactician, but you taught your generals well. Elder. What? But you can't send me to Leisure Wood. Elf. Other elf. You know the rules. At this point, you're a drain on the unparents. We need to make sure that they thrive until we break this curse or overcome this issue of the stupid fucking god laid upon us. Elder. But Leisure Wood has no defenses. Elf. Sure it does. And all the other old elves. Listen, Gramps, you don't have to hobble fast. You just have to hobble faster than the guy next to you. So keep up with the calisthenics. That's all for today. Keep rolling crits, especially you, Stork, because your crits are the fun ones. Weasel Creature, LBC Gamer Extraordinaire. P.S. And then it's just blank. So, yes. It's interesting because I think Stu was looking to mimic kind of the vibe of Tolkien with this, where the elves are leaving, their time is over, but it's not because they can't have kids. It's not because their numbers are dwindling. It's because they are literally getting up and leaving on boats to sail across the magic ocean and ether, depending on what point in the ages of Tolkien you're talking about, to get to Valinor. So they're literally choosing not to have children, and then they are leaving, and they live forever. So, like, there's no such thing as, like, an old elf in Tolkien's, like, society. Like, you can get hurt, you can get killed, but you don't really age. You're immortal. So, not being useful anymore isn't a thing. Stu didn't have that in his lore. So, yes, elves got old, but they could also only have one child. So, yeah, it's an interesting problem, and it would probably lead to some sort of polyamory, or when there's assuming that they birthed. We never really got into the physical aspects of them, but knowing Stu, it probably was, there were the females that gave, those who had wombs or uteruses of some type would give birth. So it probably would end up where they were trying to have as many uterus having elves as possible give birth, and then like one semen giving elf for all the others. But yeah, it just causes a lot of complications, and it's one of those things that we started kind of diving into when we played, because we actually started playing in Eldemy a long time before we started doing. We actually started playing before we started the podcast, and then which was way too many years ago now, by the way. 2009 is when we started the podcast. So we started that game, I think, in early 2000 or late 2008. And then way before actual plays. So like none of this is documented really anywhere. He did do later games that were actual plays in the same universe, but I can't remember. We didn't ever really spend a lot of times with elves. I think in part because we dove deep. Shockingly, I was very interested in the elves, and I dove deep in that when we first started playing. Stu was unprepared, really, honestly. Like, the poor guy, like, we had been friends, but we hadn't really gotten into gaming. I was, like, a new gamer. And suddenly, I was at his table talking about elves, and Stu was like, well, there's stuff and things. What? Why? Okay. And I was like, oh, no, you don't understand. I speak Quenya. What he asked me what Quenya was, and then it was a lot for him. So I don't think he was much more interested in some of the other cultures as he was planning the game, creating the world, setting up GMing. We were very much he was very much in that time of very specific planning. We hadn't played so much where we were able to improvise games kind of like we are more able to now as GMs. Like no plan GMs was definitely not a thing in our vocabulary at the time, and we'd all only played D&D, or I think GURPS is what, Stu came from GURPS. So anyway, that's the context for that email. Moral of that story is, past Stu, don't invite Kimmy to your game, young, beautiful college-age Kimmy, to your game when there's elves if you haven't really thought it through. And obviously Weasel Creature too, so... And yes, Stu is absolutely the creator that screwed over the elves. So, darn him. But it was pretty funny. All right. Well, let's see. I think that's it for tonight. Look at this. I did a solo episode. I hope it wasn't terrible. So, let me know. And maybe I'll stop stressing so much when people aren't signed up for the show and just do it more often. We'll see. Please let me know. All right. Thank you for joining me, not us, me, for season 35, episode 13 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. Please support our amazing indie designer of the month, Jess, they from Wannabe Games. Super amazing person. Thank you to our chat mod, James V, and to our amazing Patreons who keep us ad-free and independent. You can join their amazing ranks at happyjacks.org/Patreon. My name is Kimmy. You can find me at Golden Lasso Girl on Blue Sky. I think some of my accounts are still active other places and auto posting, but I don't really check them. Sometimes I'm on Mastodon. I still do Mastodon sometimes. Yeah, and you can find my games at goldenlassogames.com. If you're in the Discord, I currently have a little survey up about images for Decima, so go see that. Yeah, and don't forget Game Days, May 24th. Very fun, very cool. We are going to leave you with a song today called Toss a Coin to Your Witcher by a band called The Mary Sues, which are hopefully going to start rehearsing soon. And I need to do the website because the website's down. But anyway, Mary Sues. Eventually it'll be marysuesband.com because I don't have enough to do already. So yes. All right. Thank you, friends. It's been fun, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.
Toss a coin to your witcher, oh valley of plenty, oh valley of plenty, oh. Toss a coin to your witcher, oh valley of plenty. When a humble bard graced a ride along with Geralt of Rivia, along came this song. When the White Wolf fought silver-tongued devil, his army of elves at his feet they did revel. They came after me, masterful deceit, broke down my lute and kicked in my teeth. When the devil's horns minced our tender meat, and so cried the witcher, he can't be bleed. Toss a coin to your witcher, oh valley of plenty, oh valley of plenty, oh. Toss a coin to your witcher, oh valley of plenty. The edge of the world, fight the mighty horde that bashes and breaks you and brings you to mourn. He thrust every elf far back on the shelf, high up on the mountain from where they did come. He wiped out your pest, got kicked in the chest, a friend of humanity, so give him the rest. That's my epic tale, champion prevailed, defeated the villain, now pour him some ale. Toss a coin to your witcher, oh valley of plenty, oh valley of plenty, oh. Toss a coin to your witcher, oh valley of plenty.